Hello everyone! We've covered the initial story for The War Within, and one of the more frequent asked questions is, what is next?
Tell me,
where do we go from here?
And there are a couple of possibilities. I mean, the future is unwritten, anything is possible, but there are a couple of storylines that we're hinting at and building up. That's what we're gonna dive into today. Talk about what we know, speculate a little bit about what might happen. Today's episode's all about the Lifelands. So in the Warcraft universe, we've got these cosmic forces and domains that belong to them. The Shadowlands was all about the domain of death. The Lifelands would be all about life. We've already seen a connection between these domains in Ardenweald, where the Winter Queen hosts certain spirits, and instead of having those spirits work in the Shadowlands or become one with it, here they can actually recover and return to the Emerald Dream, her sister Elune's domain, and eventually return to the world of the living. That's how, for example, a wild god Cenarius was slain by Grommash in Warcraft 3, but then returned to us with the Cataclysm. Its affinity brought him over to Ardenweald, where he recovered, passed over into the Emerald Dream, and eventually was summoned back to the world. And a fun side note is that we also left Vol'jin of the Darkspear tribe in one of those paths to recover, from which he could potentially one day return. Perhaps he could become a new Loa.
looks like old Vol'jin be starting a new hunt. After I be getting some rest.
Now from this info, you might think that the Emerald Dream is the same as the Domain of Life. But, as with a lot of stories that we see play out now, they've added some books with dragonflights which offered a new interesting look on the nature of the dream, written by an unnamed dragon. Has the dragon, as the name implies, wonder on the nature of the dream. Not to stir discontent, or to claim my theories are immutable truths, but to encourage others to ponder these subjects for themselves. It has been said that the dream was created by Keeper Freya, acting on behalf of her patron Eonar, and yet I've noticed that the Titan's acolytes do not speak of something as finished until it has been ordered. So did they truly create the dream, or merely discover it, seeing its vibrancy as chaos, to which they were compelled to bring structure? We've also been told that the dream is a sort of framework for life on Azeroth, and it is true that we can see reflections of our world within the dream. Yet, while it is clear that these realms share a bond, is one a copy of the other, or might both be reflections, each informing the shape of its counterparts? Many times I've shrugged off the call of sleep and taken wing to explore the distant reaches of the dream. The further I flew, the greater the wonders I beheld. Life took form strange and unfamiliar, bizarre, impossible plants and trees, creatures unlike any I beheld before. Perhaps the dream is bound not only to Azeroth, but to realms not yet discovered. Is it a reflection of those places too? At these far reaches, I felt the presence of entities whose power seemed vast and unknowable, aching to the Titans themselves. Had I reached the edge of the dream, where it flows into the realms of life? Are they one and the same? It seems clear that the servants of the Titans wish the dream to stay unchanging, at least unchanged by any hand but theirs, yet the very nature of life is one of change, is it not? Things are born, live and die, but life itself goes on. Perhaps life was never meant to be ordered, to be static and unchanging. The Titan servants do not seem to understand that life and death are sisters, bound together in a great cycle. Do they not wish to see this truth? Or is it beyond their fundamental nature to perceive it? If we dragons see it, then it can only mean that we are touched, not just by life and order, but other forces as well. And if dragons are the product of powers great and small, being eternally intertwined, then so must all mortals be. Perhaps Azeroth herself was touched by all these forces. Or could she be their true source? Some things are beyond knowing. Some things are meant only to be pondered in dreams. A interpretation is that the Emerald Dream that we know and seen is only part of the domain of life, that the Titans got their hands on and that they brought order to. If you play during Dragonflight, then you spend some time in the dream. Or perhaps you're familiar with Ysera and the Green Dragonflight. Their charge, given to them by the Titans to keep the dream safe, having to deal with the Emerald Nightmare. Malfurion and other druids have helped them with this charge as well, especially when the dragons lost a whole bunch of their powers. Now the dream's description, it's been somewhat vague over the years, but to keep things simple, it is connected to life. And this green dragon, it's trying to cross the borders of the dream and explore further, and it feels the presence of entities whose powers seem vast and unknowable, aching to the Titans themselves. The Titanic Pantheon are those of the domain of order, and we've met the so-called Eternal Ones, similar to the Titans but connected to the domain of death. Could there also be a pantheon for each of the other cosmic forces, for the domain of life as well, and if so, who would be amongst its members? Well, one of them would be an easy pick, the goddess Elune.
How dare you come here, sister?
The sister connection to the Winter Queen does not necessarily have to be one by blood, rather a familiarity, the connection between life and death personified. Elune is primarily known as the goddess of the Night Elves, and that story goes way back when, to a time where they were still dark trolls and found a way to the Well of Eternity. The energies radiating from the lake suffused the trolls' flesh and bones, evolving them into what we now know as the Night Elves. These former trolls gradually abandoned their ancient heritage and traditions. Instead, they began worshipping the moon goddess Elune, who they believed was bound to the Well of Eternity itself. And that well is there, because when the Titans ripped out the old god Yogg-Saron, a massive wound was created from which Azeroth's life energy started to bleed out. The Keepers put the well over it as a sort of band-aid, and the Night Elves would claim that their deity slumbered within the found's depths during daylight hours. They'd also learn other Titan-forged words from communing with Elune, words like Kalimdor or Kaldori, meaning children of the stars. But while they might have believed that Elune was connected to this well or to the moon, that does not mean Elune is just known on Azeroth. The dragon wondered if the Emerald Dream might reflect more worlds than just Azeroth. And seeing how spirits from other worlds ended up in Ardenweald, it stands to reason that their worlds would also have a connection to the dream, a connection to the domain of life. And what we know for certain is that the goddess Elune, she is known across the universe as more races worship her.
Elune be praised!
Beyond Elune, it would be anyone's guess what other members could be part of this pantheon. I wouldn't mind if Kwanzu, Loa of Change, would actually be another member. True to their nature, change seems to be their whole thing, which is what life is all about, and asking where they're from or who they are, it doesn't give us major clarity. I am the harbinger of change. I am the reaper of consequences. But how are we gonna get to this realm? Well, in Azj-Kahet, there are routes, and some of those look very Emerald Dream in design. Fly up and you'll be put to sleep, perhaps a gateway into future content. We've discussed these routes a couple of times now. In essence, there's a book that talks about the days of the Titans finding the old gods and the Black Empire. Titan Eonar decided to plant a branch of Kahanir, the Mother World Tree, which was gifted to her by her beloved Elune, which the Titan Aman'thul did not appreciate. This was chaos to him, not order, and he had ripped the tree out, but unknown to Aman'thul was that the roots survived, and in time, guardians would appear. Guardians which we presume to be the Horanir. They are a brand new race, with the potential of becoming playable in the future. They're all about protecting these roots, but their culture is very much about sticking with their own, hiding in the shadows, not making contact with the outsiders. With Nerubians gathering the black blood, the blood of the old gods, times are changing. And so Orwennia makes the call to save our life and lets us help them out.
You have shown your true form. Orwennia, this is forbidden.
The black blood spreads deeper every day. We need their aid.
We need nothing from them.
Enough! We both know our charge. They are of this world, and they too seek to defend it.
On higher. She speaks with the song of the world. You know it, as do I.
The others won't hear of this.
At least it will not be the first tradition we have broken.
Go, all of you. I will join you soon.
Like us, Orwennia has a connection to the Song of the World, apparently, the Radiant Song. And so far, they've been all about protecting the roots from its corruption. We have learned about the Unseeming, a shadowy realm below reality that you enter by touching that corrupted blood, where true horrors lurk. I would compare it to the Upside Down from Stranger Things. And while we try to save what we can, the infection is seemingly too far to really make a change. Something to deal with in the future. So we got ourselves a pathway in there, we got a domain to visit, and we got allies to join us. We also got the Irvin connected to Keeper Freya that would fit in rather nicely, but then the question becomes, what kind of story could we get? When I look at the history of Warcraft, the stories we got with life, with those energies known commonly as nature magic, promoting growth and renewal in all things, we've pretty much seen two major storylines play out. There's the mentioned Emerald Dream, that ordered piece of the domain of life, which was infected by the old god Yogg-Saron when a world tree's roots touched his subterranean prison, and he placed the seeds for something called the Emerald Nightmare. This would corrupt the dream and nearly wipe us out, coming to a conclusion with Xavius the Nightmare Lord, a storyline that we cleaned up for the majority during the Expansion Legion. Now the roots and the corruption of the old gods is now being done again through the black blood, which is causing another sort of infection. If the comparison between the unseeming and the upside down from Stranger Things holds true, would it allow for a corrupting, nightmarish force threatening the domain of life? Maybe, but I do wonder if that wouldn't be too much of a repeat. The second major story is not on Azeroth, rather it is played out on Draenor, the planet that you probably have known best as Outland. When the Titans were going around looking for more slumbering spirits, Agramar came across Draenor, and while he could sense that the planet did not house a slumbering spirit, he was intrigued by the wilds that cultivated the planet. Nearly all worlds in existence were home to the elemental spirits of fire, air, earth, and water. Sometimes, these primordial beings were actually highly destructive. They would take on physical forms, wage war against each other, keeping their respective worlds in a state of constant upheaval. The spirit of Azeroth had actually consumed so much of its spirit of life that balance was lost, and the elemental lords were constantly waging war with each other until the arrival of the old gods, but not so on Draenor. Instead, an abundance of the fifth element, the spirit of life, had saturated the world. This force had a natural calming effect on the other elemental spirits. It tempered their violent nature, and it even prevented them from taking on physical forms. The fifth element had another, far more extraordinary effect on Draenor. It accelerated the growth of flora and fauna. Life ran rampant, and if nothing would be done, life would consume everything on the world, even the elemental spirits. Once that had happened, the so-called Evergrowth would devour itself. Draenor would be left a dust-blown wasteland, devoid of even the most primitive life. Agramar could not leave the world to such a fate, and while he considered destroying the Spore Mounds himself, like with the old gods, his power was so great that he feared it would do far too much damage, not to mention that he wasn't going to be around forever to constantly keep things in check. So it was that he combined the elements, fire, earth, water, and air, and he gave rise to the Grunt. Long story short, Grunt would battle with the Spore Mounds, and while the battle would keep on going, Agramar's mission of bringing balance and order, it was mostly successful. And as a fun side note, from the Grunt, we would see other races spring forth, like the Colossals, Magnaron, Grun, Ogron, Ogres, and then the Orcs.
Draenor is free!
Agramar's fear of Draenor becoming a dust-blown wasteland seemingly came true twice. The first time was in our timeline, with the Burning Legion corrupting the Orcs, introducing foul, demonic blood. Their planet became horribly corrupted. The second time is kept a little bit more in the dark, but it's related to alternate Draenor. This is the one that we partied on during the expansion Wars to Draenor, and while we left the planet after saving the day, we would return around 35 years later from their point of view, and we'd find that our former friends and allies had been in a massive war. High Exar Girl has become a light fanatic, blaming the Magar orcs for choking the life from this world, dooming the land to desiccation, while Gromash and the Magar, they call her blind. It is the light that has doomed this world. Now, no real conclusion was given. We weren't shown which side was wrong about this, which side was right. All we were left with was quickly teleporting the Magar orcs back to our reality, while Gromash sacrificed himself, taking on Yrl and these light fanatics. The Magar joined the Horde as a brand new allied race, but they were not the only ones to come with. Keen-eyed observers noticed that the Botani quickly ran away. If life is going to be a subject, then the Botani could definitely play a part, and a connection to alternate Draenor that could be made with the whole Renilush storyline. This whole big battle between light versus darkness, and the nuance that going to an extreme is not the best course of action, no matter what cosmic force you're wielding. If they want to bring in Yrl and this storyline, this whole Renilush thing seems like a perfect opportunity. In turn, we could also see a return of the Drust, a more corrupted version of Druidism. In a similar vein, there was the story about decay with the gnolls in Dragonflight. You might recall taking on the Patriarch Rafi in Brackenhide Hollow, who discovered decay magic in her thirst for power, and declared herself the Patriarch after mastering it.
No, I will not lose more. The rat will come for you.
Leaving the fight with her life intact, and the promise of getting us next time. So that's something we could deal with. And for decay, so we got like the basic elements, right? We got fire, earth, air, and water that serve as these building blocks of all matter in the physical universe. Then in shamanic cultures, they've long sought to live in harmony with, or assert dominion over these elements. And to do so, they call upon the primordial forces of spirits and decay. Those who seek to bring balance to the elements rely on spirits, sometimes referred to as the fifth element by shaman or Chiba monks. This life-giving force interconnects and binds all things in existence as one, whereas decay is the tool of a shaman seeking to subjugate and weaponize the elements themselves. What could be awesome is if we could incorporate this decay or the more corrupted version of the druidism that the Drust use, and not just have the Haranir join us as an allied race, but also perhaps a new variation of druidism. It could be a brand new class, but I'd honestly settle for some spell upgrades, similar to the Warlock Greenfire questline, but knowing that we now have hero talents, it might be a bit too much to ask. As a final thing for today's video, to throw into the pot of possibilities, there's also the book from the Shadowlands, Enemy Infiltration Preface. As explained, the cosmic forces wage war with one another, trying to dominate, and from the realms of death, there was Sire Denethrius sending out his dreadlords to infiltrate the different cosmic domains. The adherents of life are the most insidious of opponents, perhaps because their nature is so antithetical to our own. Still, we learned much from observing the link between their plane and Ardenweald. We have a high confidence that a vulnerability has been identified. Our operative has already gained the trust of her targets.
The cunning ones kneel before 6 masters, but serve only one. The vassal of life disguises treachery. Beware the eyes of greed.
Back when, I was told that a vassal is a feudal title for a landholder who serves a lord. So basically it means a high-ranking servant of life in this phrase. On top of that, the eyes of green could be literal, or it could be more about envy. What could be happening is that our Elune, or one of the other beings in the domain of life, they have a servant that seems rather dodgy and disguises treachery. Could make for a potential return of Sire Denethrius, if not for him, at least the plans that are put in motion way back when. The Eyes of Green don't necessarily have to belong to the Vassal of Life either. They could just be the ones guiding us into treachery without even knowing it. But that's all very much potentials, and here you go. Now you're hopefully a bit more up to speed on the idea behind the roots, the domain of life, and potential stories that could go down in the Lifelands. By all means, let me know what you would like to see in the comments down below. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And until next time. See ya!